Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to another episode of the Red, White, Claret, and Blue Show. I'm your host, Chris Condit, flying solo today. Alex did a solo pod yesterday. Today, I'm doing a solo pod because we just don't like each other all that much, in truth. No, I'm kidding, of course. As Alex said, I was dealing with some issues with one of my kids yesterday that we don't need to get into. I don't mean to laugh because it's an entirely inside joke that we don't need to really talk about. And then Alex has some stuff going on as he prepares for a major event in his life that he's mentioned on this show before. That's coming up in a little bit. But today I'm here to talk about the upcoming match, which is going to be either tomorrow, if you're listening to this thing very late when I do finally load this up, or today, because this should be hitting your feeds first thing in the morning for some of you guys across the pond, and for those of you here in the States, you probably didn't download this thing at 10 o'clock at night. But we're going to look ahead to the Europa League contest with Go Ahead Eagles, and as Alex correctly said, it's the best named team that we've ever played, at least in my time watching Aston Villa. But I do want to say one thing, and I texted Alex today when I listened to his podcast, his solo pod. Boy, we won the game against Tottenham, right? Alex does realize we won that game. He sounded really down about it for like 90% of that podcast. And I understand that it wasn't perfect, but we did win. So I want everybody to be clear. Villa won. Villa beat Tottenham, despite what you may have heard in that pod. But today, as I said, I'm flying solo. And if you hear any noises in the background, I do apologize. I'm also flying solo here at home because my wife is in New York City with friends watching Hamilton, which those of you who are across the pond don't know what Hamilton is, you probably do, but it's a play mostly about how some Americans whipped the great grandfather of noted Villa fan Prince William's ass. That's really what the play is. Just American greatness and how wonderful it is to be an American. No, I'm kidding. But it is a great play, and you should go see it. My wife had the opportunity to see it in New York City with Leslie Odom Jr. reprising his role as Aaron Burr. So obviously she couldn't miss that. But that's why I'm here by myself. So with all that stuff out of the way, please like, follow, subscribe, rate, review, all the things down here. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not watching on YouTube and you're listening on audio, continue to listen on audio and then come check us out on YouTube, because we need all the likes, clicks, reviews, ratings, comments, all the things we can get. Please interact with us. As those of you who have been with us for a while now know, we will always interact back, and that's across all the social platforms. Alex is very good at staying on top of YouTube and Instagram, and I stay on the Twitter page pretty well, X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it now. So please come enjoy the time with us, and we will interact with you. And thank you for those of you who do come on and talk and comment and like and subscribe and all those things. So please continue to do so. We are very slowly growing this podcast, and we're going to continue to do so. And we appreciate each and every one of you. All right. So let's talk about Go Ahead Eagles. And today we're going to have lukewarm takes like we always do, although they're probably going to be slightly hotter because Alex isn't here to temper me. I think he always gets a little nervous when I'm doing solo podcasts because he's usually the one that keeps me tethered. But I can guarantee you that the takes will be hotter than the water at the Emirates. That's a direct shot at you, Mikel Arteta. Thank you for that. Go Ahead Eagles. They are not in great form to start the year. Just 2 wins from 9 in the Eredivisie, which is the Dutch league, and 1 win away and 1 loss at home in Europa League to start the campaign. Last season, they finished 7th in the league, but won the KNVB Cup, which gives them status to the Europa League knockout stage. So that is how they got here. But right now, they sit 12th in Europa League, and in Eredivisie, and they've struggled out of the gate, and particularly at home. So it's an interesting matchup from that standpoint. you immediately look at it and see Villa with a 5-game, winning streak now, 5 wins on the spin, coming into a team that's struggling, and your head goes one of two places for me. It's either, all right, well, Villa should win this game, or, oh God, this is a perfect trap game where Villa won't win this game despite everything being set up for a win. And now we're going to look at how Go Ahead Eagles set up and why and how Villa can be successful against them. But let's talk a little bit about the team itself. Shout out to John Townley. He had a tweet today where Go Ahead Eagles have a microwave in their trophy case, which some folks online were making fun of. I love it. And then I got the full story from reading the replies, because there is very little on the internet about it. I immediately did a Google search and it came up with nothing. But there were some kind fans who talked about why there's a microwave in the trophy case. And it's because when they were promoted to the Eredivisie in 1992, their then chairman was the head of Moore's Corporation. So it's a Moore's microwave, and they put it in their trophy case as sort of a little bit of a joke. And it's kind of just a nice little homey touch, if you ask me. And it's a good reminder not to take this so seriously. I think it's awesome. I think it's great. And I think more teams should have microwaves in their trophy cases. But I love that idea. I love that it still sits there. It's just fantastic. It's a small stadium, 10,000 and change seater. So much different than Villa Park, for example, or many of the other European arenas that Villa have played in over the last 3 seasons. From what I read online, there are going to be roughly 500 Villa fans there. Feel free to correct me if I got that information wrong, but it looks like 500 away fans will be traveling to see the game on Thursday. In the league, or so far in Eredivisie, they have Go Ahead Eagles have a -1 goal differential, 15 goals scored, 16 goals against. Those of you that have listened to this podcast know that I carry a soft spot for the Eredivisie, and I used to watch it quite often before I had children, or at least before I had children who were old enough to dominate my time. Here's a hint for those of you that don't have kids. It's a lot easier when they're babies. They really don't do a whole lot. So you can just watch soccer and hold them, and it's called good parenting. But in that time, I really developed a love of the Dutch league. And the reason is it's not one of the best leagues in the world by any stretch, but they play a very entertaining style broadly of football. It's generally speaking very attacking. There's a lot of goals, and it's easy on the eyes to watch. Go Ahead Eagles have not necessarily been easy on the eyes for their supporters so far this season, and they've actually been, from the scouting I did and the reports that I read, they tend to be a little more on the passive side than the teams they're playing. They are led by Mela Meulenstein, which I knew I was going to screw up, and I practiced that, honest to God, before we got here. He's a defensive midfielder who came in this season, and he has 3 goals in all comps from the defensive midfield. And then they have a forward striker named Milan Schmidt, who has 4 goals in all comps, despite the fact that he's come off the bench most often, and he's only played 479 total minutes. So I wonder about who's going to start up top, because he's started less than half the games in league, and I believe one of the Europa League contests. So it's almost a 50-50 split down the middle, but he's not starting nearly every game, but he's leading the team in scoring all competitions. So I think that's going to be just an interesting thing to see when the lineup card comes out tomorrow, who's in that number 9 spot. They most often set up in a 4-2-3-1 and sometimes a 4-3-3 that blends, but most often they are set in that 4-2-3-1 with the defensive pivot. And their style of play is to use width down the wing and attack with crosses. David Moyes, eat your heart out. Most of their attacks come from the left. So once again, Matty Cash is going to be under pressure. And if he plays like he did against Tottenham, I feel very good about our ability to defend against go-ahead Eagles. So, and I expect it to be Cash out there once again because Villa really do not have another option at right back right now. The only other thing you could consider is going to a back three as they have, but I don't think that's going to be the case. And we'll talk more about that when I get to the lineup. This isn't going to be a super long podcast, just for those who are wondering. We'll get to that shortly. If you look at their heat map, despite the fact that most of their attacking play coming from the left, they try to maintain possession roughly about 54% for the year. And the heat map is pretty well spread out through center, right, and left when they possess the ball. There's a lot of balance to the way they play. What Villa can do is expose that width and counter. So I don't know. I think this is a good opportunity for Unai Emery to get back to that counter-attacking style. My only concern is that I don't know that go-ahead Eagles are going to come out and play and be aggressive off the start. I think we'll know within the first 5-10 minutes of this match how it's going to go, or at least how each team is going to try to attack. Because like I said, from what I've read in the scouting reports and what I've looked at in their match notes, they tend to sit back first and not strike early. And I know Alex talked about the frustrations that Villa have had so far this season conceding early goals. So I think this is either going to be a chance for Villa to really try and grab the game early and attack and get an early goal and play with a lead and hopefully play with a lot of confidence the way we've seen a couple of times where they have had the lead. Or it's a chance for them to play on the counter because of the width that go-ahead Eagles play with. It leaves them exposed to line-breaking passes and through balls that will break on the counter. So I think there's opportunities for Villa to exploit there. We'll just have to see how the game actually plays out. The other weakness they have is defending set pieces. They've conceded 6 goals from set pieces so far this season. They do not play well in the air. And so you wonder, with Tyrone Mings being back healthy, whether or not he will start. I'd be surprised to see him start coming back in, but also you do need to get some squad rotation in there. You can't just roll out the same starting 11 again. So but I do think if we see Mings, or when we see Mings, more than likely, it'll likely be off the bench. And it's one note I wanted to make. Go-ahead Eagles, I mentioned that they have a -1 goal differential. Their expected goals, they're right on it at 14. They're slightly underperforming that. 14 goals in league, 15 goals in all comps. So they're right at about 15, slightly underperforming XG in attack, but defensively, they are massively overperforming their XG. They should have given up, by XG standards again, but their XG against is almost 20 goals, and they've conceded 15 in the league, 21 goals in Europa, and they've conceded 16 all comps. 21 goals total with Europa League included. So I do think there will be opportunities for Villa to score, which is good, because what we saw, or what we've seen in the past few games, and Alex talked about this in the solo pod, is incremental steps where Villa have played better in phases of the game, even if they've not played a full 90 where it's been straight dominance, or where they've been even the better team for the full 90 minutes. I understand that's not the case necessarily, but this could be an opportunity for Villa to really establish themselves and establish their style of play and establish the game they want to play, and play with confidence, because this is a winnable game. And I'm not saying that to short the team, Go-Ahead Eagles, or the Eredivisie or anything like that, but you just have to look at this and say, this is a game that Villa should grab by the scruff of the neck and win. So I think the biggest thing for Aston Villa in attack is going to be taking advantage of the opportunities that will present themselves, because I believe they will present themselves. Defending, it's going to be defending the width and defending crosses. So you're going to be asking maybe a little bit more of Pau Torres in the air if he starts than typically you ask of him. But again, we're going to look toward Ezri Konsa, I would assume, to do most of the work there and shepherd the ball away from the danger area defensively. So defend the wings and attack on the counter, and attack with pace and speed and power. And hopefully Morgan Rogers gets going and continues to improve his play this season. Maybe he gets another goal. Again, building that confidence, because we have a game in front of us here that is, I don't want to say an easy win, because there's no such thing as an easy win in the Premier League or in European competition. But it's a game that you look at it and strictly on paper, Aston Villa should win. There is one odd situation that I want to mention before I get into lineups and my prediction for the game. I should have asked Alex his prediction while I was texting him today and busting his chops for making a podcast that kind of made it sound like Aston Villa lost, even though they beat Tottenham on the road. Arne Slot, fresh off of complaining that teams need to not change their lineups before they play his team, agreed to send Go Ahead Eagles film of Aston Villa. Now, this isn't really a big deal. I'm sure it happens all the time inside coaching circles, but I found it odd for one reason and one reason only. It's in Liverpool's best interest for Villa and all the other English clubs in Europe to do well, because the better the English clubs do, the more spots English clubs get for European competitions, right? And it's not totally out of the realm of possibility that Liverpool may finish fourth, fifth, somewhere in that neighborhood, or at least be in danger of finishing fifth with the way they're playing right now. I understand we're still relatively early in the season, but we can't just discount the fact that they may need that fifth Champions League spot, Liverpool, to qualify. Again, I don't know that that's going to be the case. I just found it odd because, again, it's against your best interest for Go Ahead Eagles to play well against Aston Villa. So I don't understand why you would do it. That's my only comment on Arne Slot and Liverpool in this podcast that has nothing to do with Arne Slot or Liverpool. The lineup that I would go with, or at least that I think Emery might go with. Mings is going to be back, as we know. Yuri Tielemans is still out with injury. Luka Dean is unavailable due to the laceration that he suffered against Tottenham. And Andres Garcia is still out. I have no idea what that injury is. I was reminded that he was out when I was going through the research for this podcast, and he's been out for what feels like months now, and I don't know why. And if anybody knows, hit us up. As Alex would say, God, I can't believe I'm going to say this. Slide tackle into our DMs and let us know what you're hearing. But the lineup that I think that Emery's going to go with, in goal, Marco Bizot. I think from the back four, you really don't have a lot of options. It's going to be Cash Konsa. I think Pau Torres will likely start because Mings is returning off of injury. Ian Maatsen is going to be at left back because of Luka Dean's injury. In the defensive midfield, it's going to be Bogard and Kamara, because Bogard didn't really feature against Tottenham, and Kamara is your only real option as another defensive midfielder, unless you do some work with McGinn sliding back. But here's where I'll get to McGinn, because I do think he's going to be out there. I think the front line is going to be Rogers, McGinn, Daniel Malen, and Ollie Watkins. So a very attacking lineup. And when I was going through this, one of the reasons that I think that Emery's going to go with a strong lineup is his comments today, where he said the goal is not to be is to compete. It's not to improve, it's to compete. So he sounds like he's past the point of process. Alex and I talk a lot about process and results. and he wants to get to results. And this is the lineup that will get him the result that he wants. And with that, my prediction for this game, I have a scoreline of 2-0 Aston Villa. For fun, I'll give you goal scorers. I think it'll be Ollie Watkins and Morgan Rogers. And hopefully I'm right. Like Alex and I always say, it would be a tough one, I think, if Villa can't come away with 1 point at a minimum. But I think 3 points has to be the goal here. And with that, I have one shout out before we end the podcast. Shout out to SL Campbell. Thank you for listening and commenting on the YouTube page. You are joined by Big Walt, one of our earliest and most fervent listeners, and my lovely wife. So I'm always constantly reminded that I need to be very careful about what I say on this podcast because my wife watches and listens to every word I say. So I have to make sure not to say anything that would upset her. No, I'm just kidding. I never upset her. Obviously, I'm the perfect husband. What other husband do you know that does a podcast based on his favorite soccer team for 100 subscribers or whatever we've got now? Who wouldn't want to be married to this? Are you kidding me? Now that I've embarrassed myself enough, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Alex and I will be back to recap this game and look ahead. Probably, I would assume sometime Saturday if we do get a preview in for Man City. If not, we'll jump in after the Man City game on Sunday. Probably putting a pod out sometime Monday or Tuesday. Appreciate you guys very much. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching again. And as always, up the Villa.
Hi, Mom and Dad.